Yes, we did it. Yay. Okay. Yes, I'm excited. We connected appropriately. Okay, I don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of having to restart the stream. Yes. That's what we love to hear. Yes, I know we have a great number. It's our 269th weekly live stream, which is what, like 4 years? No, 5? We're over, like, we've been live streaming for 5 years. What the heck? What the heck, y'all? I don't know. Okay. Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing? What is going on? If such a low percentage is said to be into kink. Oh, something about library books. I want to, why are all the kink type books in the library always out? My conspiracy theory answer is that it's somebody who hates kink who checks out the books because they don't want other people to read the bad, naughty books. I think that's a thing that people do where they're like, the library has these terrible books where they're teaching the college students about what an orgasm is. This cannot be allowed. This cannot be done. So, like, really conservative adults will, like, go and check out these terrible, profane, awful, unimaginable books about sexuality. You know, they maybe keep one part of their, in the nightstand, and maybe they just, they pop it open just to see what's in there. They gotta know how terrible it really is so they can warn everybody of what's in there, right? I'm so sure. I am so sure. I am not feeling the need to go live 20 times at once. Yes. I resolved to no longer do that. Okay. So, we are here. It is Friday. We are going to do our usual thing. We are doing a Q&A about kink, BDSM, relationships, sexuality, queer stuff, whatever, polyamory, I don't think I said that one, all that kind of thing, asexuality. And you guys ask questions, I answer them. This is an 18 plus only stream. Also, we have rules down below. Please check them out. They're pretty simple. Basically, listen to the mods, be respectful, don't spam the chat. And if you have some questions, I have links to answers below to commonly asked questions about, like, where do I buy a flogger? How do I tell my boyfriend I want to try BDSM? Of course, I'm always happy to discuss specifics. If you're like, well, my question is kind of in the FAQ, but I don't really fully know. Like, if you're like, my boyfriend, I tried to talk to him about trying kink, and then he was put off by it, and then he came back to me like 2 days ago and said, actually, I'm open to it. What do I do with that information? Like, I'm happy to talk about more particulars, but the basics are kind of down there just to have a little bit of a reference point. Is it bad I don't know who Finster is? Should I know who Finster is? That looks, a Minecraft YouTuber who dresses up like a woman occasionally? Is that who we're, is that, or is that a different person? The same anti-kinksters had a secret Tumblr account, I'm sure, back in the day. Yes. I'm not going to say... I don't really like making arguments that are like that flavor of, like, everyone who is homophobic is, like, secretly gay. And I don't like making the kink version of that argument, which is, like, everyone who hates kink secretly is, like, a self-hating masochist, and this is, like, a really complicated performance of emotional sadomasochism. I think there are people who legitimately do believe that, like, the only proper kind of sexual expression is, like no penises, no penetration, lights off, under the covers, whispering to each other gently how much you love each other until like somebody has a spontaneous orgasm brought on by like, you know, thinking of the beauty of the universe. Like, there are some people who think that it's the only pure and correct way of experiencing sexuality. But there are a lot of people, I think, just because when you look at the numbers of how common certain fantasies are, and not even just like kink stuff, but anything across the spectrum from like exhibitionism to group sex to definitely kinky things as well. It's a lot of people. Like, the majority of people have some kind of fantasy that falls into a realm along those lines, plus like a couple of others that I didn't mention. And so when you have a bunch of people online that are like, this thing is bad and evil and awful, it's like, what? If I go to your Tumblr account, what am I going to find on there? Not your main, your alt account, the secret one. What's going to be on there? You'd be surprised. A lot of people are not even necessarily repressing things, because I think they're sort of the people that are, the stereotype being that they're so far back in the closet that they like only can project anger towards other people who are like them because their secret desires are so unspeakable that the only thing they can like use to cope with it is just being angry at everyone who reminds them of their secret, you know, hidden thing that they barely or even like maybe consciously aware of. But I think a lot of people have a, you know, it's okay for me, but not for the attitude. Like, they know that they're into like exhibitionism or voyeurism or being tied up or being blindfolded, but it's okay because, well, but I'm a real feminist, and so because I am consciously aware of how this behavior is replicating the patriarchy in the bedroom, it actually makes it okay that I'm doing it. Whereas you gross, icky, non-actively feminist people, or like the wrong kind of feminist, right? Like if you're an intersectional feminist instead of like a Marxist feminist instead of a radfem, you know, well, your feminism is wrong, and so it doesn't really count. Like, the reason for the title for today is Contrapoints, queen of the internet, recently published a video that is called Twilight. It's amazing. I'm like, it's like the length of, like, I don't know, probably the first like recent adaptation of the Dune franchise. Like, what was it, Dune Part 1 or whatever they called it? It's like 2 hours and, yeah, it's 2 hours and 52 minutes. It is a long feature length film. It is Oscar worthy. And I got about 2 hours and 10 minutes into it or so. And sort of the midpoint to where I'm at really covers a lot of things that I've been talking about from like a slightly different perspective, like citing different sources and some different thinkers, because like I don't have the time to spend 12 months making one video reading nothing but like literature the entire time. So she definitely references some stuff in there that I don't, but it's that same like key idea of like fantasy and people not understanding it. And there are, and I was sort of aware of like Dworkin and like the really like obvious mainstream like radical feminists, and I knew obviously about their ideas like political lesbianism and all of that, but I didn't realize in the writings from some people, most of whom are now TERFs, because of course they are, a lot of them, like, not only did they personally choose to be lesbians, like, I just had somebody explain lesbianism to me and I just like decided to do it. Like, they think that lesbian women and gay men are not even just replicating the patriarchy in their bedroom because like one's a receiver and one's the giver, the action doer, but they are heterosexual. Like, if you are in a femme butch top bottom, I guess actually it would be the other way around. It would be femme butch bottom top, you know, corresponding, you know, across the lines there. If you're in that relationship, you just are heterosexual. I'm sorry, what? Like, and they wonder why their ideas didn't catch on, because you're telling all the straight women they have to be lesbians, but then when they're lesbians, they can't even be with butch women. Like, come on. come on, you can't be surprised that not everyone is on. Like, honestly, I wonder if maybe if asexuality and aromanticism had like been more of a term back then, if people were more aware of like asexuality as a spectrum, like maybe she would have realized that actually what she was like asexual. And like, I don't know, but people have a tendency to think that other people think more like them than they actually do. There's like, I think there's a term for this, like mentalism or something, or I forget what the term for it is, but I think there is one in psychology of the phenomenon of people like, maybe it's theory of mind, maybe it's kind of along that line, but basically like most people have a tendency to believe that other people are generally like them in terms of like how they think about stuff, what their inner landscape is like, and so naturally they just assume, well, I mean, I could do it, so like why can't other people do it? Wasn't that hard? Okay. Meanwhile, I think this is why, like people, if you ever heard of the test people do where it's about like visualizing an apple, and it's about kind of seeing where you are along a spectrum of like when somebody asks you to think about an apple, like do you picture like the word apple? Do you picture like a little like 2D cartoon sketch of an apple? Like, can you visualize anything at all? Because some people can't even visualize like a word, right? They just like, they're thinking a thought, but there's no visual component to it. Whereas like the far side of the spectrum is like you can like have a 3D blender model of an apple, including like the taste, the smell, and the texture of the apple, like all at the same time. And a lot of people are very shocked when they discover that like other people fall on a different part of that spectrum, or indeed even that it is part of a spectrum of experiences. Anyways, I do not remember the name of the person who thinks that gay men and women who are in femme butch, or I'm not sure what the gay man's equivalent of a femme butch relationship is, but whatever that is, this is a twink bear relationship, I guess, which I feel very dumb. But I'm gonna just excuse this with my asexuality. I didn't realize that twink is a reference to a Twinkie. Now it makes sense. And I kind of hate it, but I also kind of love it at the same time. But my innocence has been stolen from me. I picture an apple like an apple I see in front of my eyes. I usually, depending on when I ask the question and like I'm thinking about it myself, I usually think of like an apple in a kitchen, like the whole context of the kitchen and the apple, and I usually like hear the sound of like biting the apple and the taste of the apple. I kind of like have like a phantom sense of apple taste in my mouth. That sounds very weird. And I can like pick up the apple, interact with it. Like I have a very, very like visual brain experience, so it's easy for me to do that. But when I learned people just like think the word apple, I was like, what? It blew my mind. Yeah, it would be not a twink bear, but a twink and a bear together. It would be femme and masks, but usually in the gay community. Thank you for telling me of the language. I do not typically know of such things. Anyways, thank you for indulging me on my rants, though you have no choice because this live stream is not a democracy. I mean, it kind of is. It kind of is a democracy. I assume any combination of relationship is possible. Do you mean like a BDSM daddy? Probably. I mean, that's the thing, is like the world is your oyster. You can have whatever kind of relationship you want to have. Like I know lots of people in the kink community who have like identifiers that if you told Twitter about them, they would instantly assume the person I'm talking about is like a 24-year-old on Tumblr, and it's like, no, this person's like 55. Like they've been around for a while. They had time to think about this. And for example, like there's somebody that I like, a couple people, more than a few. I know a lot of like people in the kink scene that are he, him, butch lesbians, especially like leather daddies. That's like a very common thing, and I love it. I wish that was like more widely accepted, but that just like blows people's minds that that could even be a thing that you choose to do. But the world is full of possibilities. I do very rarely think of somebody saying the word I'm thinking of. Like, I don't think the word, like, today's word is apple. Like, I don't think of, like, and now summoning the picture of an apple. It's not how I think about it, but that could be fun. I like the idea of having, like, a little, like, I mean, we all, like, I don't know. I think most people have, like, some degree of a narrator in their head, but I love the idea of, like, my brain announcing to me, and now we're thinking of an apple. And now we're thinking about your dog. Yes, I am. I now you know what a Twinkie is. Yes, it's usually IE at the end. There was also a panic at some point because didn't they discontinue Twinkies for like a hot minute? Didn't wasn't that a thing? People like panic bought a lot of Twinkies and it was like a whole deal. I mean, yeah, you can be a daddy and have a daddy and be in your 20s. I'm just saying that I think the stereotype is for Twitter, if somebody hears somebody saying like I'm a he him lesbian, their instinct is like, "Oh my god, this is like some young person who's like choosing fancy combinations of words and titles to like try and be special and different," and they hate that for some reason. Whereas in reality, like there's a lot of people who have been on this earth for a minute, have had a lot of time being active participants in the queer community who are just like, yeah, I'm a he him butch daddy lesbian. What are you gonna do about it? You know, like you can't stop them. They're not, you know, you can't. They're not gonna stop being that way just because you're confused by it. But you can be. I know there's every once in a while you'll hear somebody who makes a point about like, oh my god, there's these people on FetLife and you know they're 22 and they're saying that they're a master or daddy and like you know you're too young to call yourself, you know, these things. And I think that's really ignorant and it's gatekeeping to an unnecessary degree. I don't believe in like no gatekeeping whatsoever. Although I guess it depends on how you define gatekeeping. Like to me, I see gatekeeping as restricting access to participation in a particular community and or a physical community space. And so I think, you know, for example, we gatekeep people that are minors out of our space. I gatekeep minors out of my live streams. And I think that that is totally acceptable and fine. So a degree of gatekeeping is allowable, but it's like I, as the arbiter of all kink titles, say that no person who is under the age of 30 is allowed to call themselves a master because you don't have the requisite experience. And it's like, oh my God, okay. Like when we were first kind of, you know, when the concept of the kink community was but a twinkle in Tom of Finland's eye. You know, we used words like master and daddy because they were hot. Because people liked saying the words because they were fun and exciting. The community hadn't been around for long enough to have any sense of like, you gotta put in your time and you gotta go to this many parties and you gotta take this many classes. Because that wasn't a thing. Like, that wasn't something that people did. People didn't really give a shit about that. As far as I know, based on the history I've been able to glean from the resources we do have. And so now we've kind of post hoc added on this assumption of like, well, you can only say these words and use these titles if you have this many years of experience. And I think there is, to a certain extent, a legitimate worry over somebody who is inexperienced misrepresenting their level of experience, and using a title is one way of obfuscating their actual lack of knowledge, right? The people that are like, you know, welcome to the dark side, kitten, you know, my depraved mind will shock you. And then their like Tumblr blog is just like 50 pages of like threesomes and like giant busty blonde women, like, you know, deep throating people. Like, it's not as like, are we on the same page about this? And they use words like that to sort of engage in their own fantasy and in a more maybe unsavory way misrepresent to other people they may be interacting with to give other people the impression that they know what they're talking about. But I think if you are aware of the title and, you know, you can consciously choose to use it, like, you know, so what if you have 2 years of experience in the scene and not 10? Because let me tell you, there are a lot of people that I do not trust in the scene, venues I don't trust, and like the people who run them, the people I'm thinking of, use titles like, you know, daddy, sir, master, whoever, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be anywhere near that, but no one's stopping them from using whatever titles they want because they're grown. And somehow they've earned that respect, even though their behavior certainly doesn't afford them that respect. What if BDSM terms were like general and captain? I don't know anyone who goes by general, but I've definitely known people have gone by admiral and captain before. So sometimes yes, and boss definitely. Definitely seen boss. I just whenever somebody says boss around me, I just think of like it feels very like masculine to me. Like, hey, how you doing, boss? Like in sort of like a friendly in a friendly, platonic way, not in a legitimately, like, you know, hey, what's up, chief? You know, sort of that, like, middle-aged white dad kind of energy. That's what I think of. Please do not make me do a spit take with my cranberry juice over Shadow Kitten. Listen, I was exposed to too much of that to not use it for good and or evil. But yeah, titles are great. I love titles. I love just like messing with stuff. The longer I'm in the scene, the more I'm like having some general guidelines of what to expect for community interaction. Like if you call yourself, you know, the usual example I give is, you know, Master Big Dick Jimmy or whatever. If you call yourself that, there are people who are going to assume that you're leather, that you have a significant amount of experience, that you do total power exchange, but you can also be somebody who's a master and like your partner is a kitten and you have like a no punishment, like pain-free, like praise kink dynamic where you just like feed them milk out of a bowl and then like tell them how beautiful and amazing they are. Like the rules of the community should only be very loosely considered to be rules, as long as you understand the implication of how other people might perceive you and make certain assumptions based on like how you label yourself. Like if you decide that you want to say the word brat instead of like, you know, like you just like to a certain extent, like I think the response is like, well, but what if somebody like words they're gonna lose all their meaning, and like what if somebody says they're a brat, but then like really what they're describing is like service submission, like it's gonna melt down. And I don't really think people will do that because like words are sort of decided collectively on what they mean, but individual titles are an entirely different matter besides that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's, you know, people generally don't, you know, need to worry about it as much as they seem to think they do. Hubsy Wubsy. Hubsy Wubsy is my favorite. And Husbear. I like that one. I'm like not necessarily big on like pet names. Like I kind of like sticking with just like one and like having that be like that person's pet name, but that's me. Was tonight's topic inspired by the new Contra video, or is that just a pleasant coincidence? I literally just finished it. Yes, it is definitely inspired by that, especially because the middle point onward of Contra's recent video is I don't want to in any way make it sound like I am comparing myself to Contrapoints intellectually. But I will say I made a lot of similar, but maybe simpler versions of the arguments that Contrapoints made in my video talking about CNC on, ye olde twitter.com, and how people like had an explosion about that, and I talked about like radical feminism and sort of the usual back and forth arguments that people have, and understanding why people have these fantasies and how common they are, and we talked about a lot of similar things. I'm very surprised that she did not make the comparison with what the fuck is that, like, Baby It's Cold Outside? Is that the actual title of that song? I keep forgetting what it's actually called. But, like, I talked about that song, and I was sure that she was going to bring it up. She doesn't, but I think that's, like, to me, that's a very simple go-to example of, like, why is sexuality so complicated? Like, why do people have to pretend that they're not horny? It's like, here you go. Now, it's a great example of it. But Contrapoints is much more thorough in her analysis, because it's a 3-hour-long video, so I have kind of time to expand upon certain thoughts. But she definitely spends a lot more time kind of realistically engaging with the thoughts of actual radical feminist thinkers and not just random people on Twitter. So if you want to hear more from that, it's where I learned about how literal they are with believing that gay people and lesbians are actually just heterosexual with extra steps. And there's also a few areas. I have a video that is actually probably be the next video I publish. So in the next couple days, I'll be publishing a video that is debunking an article that's been shared around in these like anti-kink radfem spaces, where they have, I think it's a psychiatrist who wrote this article, and it's quite long and questionably cited, where he basically tries to prove that like BDSM turns your brain into Swiss cheese. And there's a lot of talk about 50 Shades in there, so I bring that up a little bit. And there's like some areas that kind of overlap with what Contra said in her most recent video. But I will have you know that I finished writing and scripting and performing and recording and all the other steps of that video. I finished it like 2 weeks ago. So don't look at me. I didn't steal anything. Hashtag no plagiarism. She's not that smart. I mean, she's smart, but she misses things all the time. I mean, care to elaborate on something in particular? I mean, speaking as somebody who makes videos, I constantly have to cut my own argument short, and like I know that I want to do more research about a particular thing, or like find more evidence for something, or maybe connect it to a different larger idea, or like try to read other people's work that's similar to the argument that I'm making, and I just simply don't have the time. Like, I'm aware of other arguments, I'm aware of other aspects, but I can't possibly go into all the nuance around one point because it's a prepared video, not a conversation. But yeah. Yes, that song is about people wanting to hook up, but not being able to because of the sexual repression of the mid-century. Yeah, it turns out there's not a lot of things that actually like put holes in your brain, literally. It's basically like just an applied version of the anti-porn argument of like, you can't jerk off because if you jerk off, it'll melt your brain. I'm like, you know what's melting our brains? These fucking things, okay? Like, maybe we should be more worried about these, and not our, and not like our fantasy landscapes, quite so much. Yeah. I mean, I can kind of like, if I write like single spaced 11 point font, a video for me that's about like half an hour, like 30 minutes long, is about 7 pages, which I mean, that's a pretty like, maybe like I guess it depends on what your major is, but like if you're in college, maybe going through a master's degree program, like, an hour long video, it's like that's like a 16-page essay. Like, that's pretty lengthy. That's a lot of like, not including, you know footnotes. It's not like double spaced. It doesn't have a bibliography attached to the end. Like just the actual meat of the argument itself being that many pages is quite long. Can they make a medical argument? How the hell BDSM puts holes in your brain? I think to not spoil the video too much, the point that the psychiatrist tries to make is that if you, he makes many points. This is one of them. If you have fantasies that you reward with orgasm, that creates like a link in your brain between those two things. And so if you masturbate and orgasm or have sex too or whatever with violence, and you create a link between violence and sexuality, it like destroys your capacity to enjoy non-violent sexual interactions, and you have to do more and more extreme forms of violence or thinking about forms of violence in order to be able to get off, which is like not how that works. It's actually like fairly difficult to like make people like you can't I don't know if I want to get into like all of this, but like you can't like make somebody have a fetish that's like not already there to a certain degree. Like you couldn't stick me in a lab and like give me a clown fetish. Like it would be, you'd have to work really hard. Like, and you know, have you ever heard those studies before where it's like it's very difficult to make like children or like monkeys afraid of flowers? Like you have to try really hard to make like otherwise innocuous objects like into something that's like fear provoking. And at least from what I remember, it's like for all I know, everything I learned in psychology undergrad was like completely debunked, because it seems like everything I learned was debunked like 5 years later. So what do I know? Yeah, it's the same thing as the porn brain argument, which is like it's bad. And like I would maybe see a hint of a version of that argument, which is yes, if you are thinking about something and rewarding that thing with orgasm, like it does make a stronger connection to it. And this is one theory for how fetishes develop in early life, not as like a 35-year-old, okay? Very different developmental stages going on in your brain there. But when you're younger and you're developing that response cycle, certainly you can end up with things being more fused together. But it isn't like mean that you can never ever enjoy anything else ever, and that like there's no going back. Like it's very, the way to describe it is very fatalistic and like final, and you can never escape from it, and so it's dangerous to even do it once. Like it's, you know, in like the DARE program, they make it sound like if you do the one that I was in school was like meth. Like if you even do like meth once, even a tiny amount by accident, you're gonna become a meth addict and your life is gonna be ruined. So you don't even think about it, bucko. And I know meth is like very addictive, but like they did that for like all drugs, but that was like the one that they really like sold people on. It's like if you ever even try like any drug, you will be permanently addicted for life, and your life will be over. The end. Technically, you could induce a fetish in someone, but it would take a lot. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like you could try, but it would be really, really difficult. And there also to some degree has to be like willingness on the part of the participant who's being molded. Like when somebody does orgasm training in like a kink context, like part of the reason that works is because the person who's being trained to orgasm and have a specific response to like somebody's voice or a toy or a position or something, like that's like because they also want it to a certain extent. Like it's really hard to just like do it non-consensually to something that the person otherwise has no response to, and in fact may even like be disgusted by. Yep, I was taught that everyone was going to be forcing you to take drugs. Yep. Don't go to parties because they're going to pressure you to take drugs. Don't hang out alone with people at the mall because they're going to pressure you to take drugs. Yeah, definitely the whole like they're going to give you stuff for free. That was very much part of it, yeah. I don't know. I do I don't really know if there's any like studies about this though, because like it's, you can't like test that. Well, maybe you could in an animal model, but like how do you test in a lab like compelling someone to have a fetish that they don't like otherwise have an interest in. Because what the research actually shows is most people have like fairly boring fantasy landscapes. There are like a significant amount of people for whom like variety and novelty itself is very important, but even within that, people tend to rotate between the same like half a handful of fantasies, like 2 or 3, right? Like people like if your wheelhouse is like anal threesomes and what other things do people like? uh, Tentacles. Just pick that one. Like you're not gonna like suddenly be into something like radically different out of the blue. Most people tend to rotate between like a couple of like core themes across their like entire lifespan once they're in like completely developed like mental adulthood. And I think that's interesting because I think people assume, oh, when you're into a certain fantasy, you always end up going to the most extreme version of it, which is not borne out by the evidence in any way. Oh shoot! I do not have the dog camera set up. I knew I was forgetting something. She is sleeping downstairs anyway. She's having a little snooze, so just like picture her being here. If she comes upstairs and knocks with your paws on my door, I will let her in and I'll turn it on. Yeah, exactly. It's like brainwashing the gay away, because that always works. Is there a way of changing the screen name, or do I need a new account? I'm pretty sure you can change your name on your Google account. I don't know how to do that though. But I think you have to go to your you have to go to your account and do that. I don't think you can change it on just like a particular stream. But I don't know. I haven't tried that before. Oh, we got a link. Cool. Perfect. I'm definitely not up at 3 a.m. just to finally experience an EV stream in real time. Well, thank you for being here, Dorian. I apologize I am compelling you to be awake at 3 a.m., but hopefully you will get some sleep soon. Hope everyone's doing good. I'm kind of new to kink. Oh, I see. Yeah, being fetishized by people. Yeah, it's unfortunately a thing that happens. For a second, I definitely read that as I think me and the Miss are beginning to transition into meat and potatoes, and I was like, they're gonna roleplay being meat and potatoes, and then these like of your dynamic, of course. Not I'm gonna be meat and she's gonna be potatoes, and like I don't know what that means, but power to you if you want to roleplay being a meat and a potato. No, she didn't. She did not. Sometimes she is sleepy and she wants to stay downstairs. Actually, we have a pile of blankets in like a corner of the house that she has decided is the best bed ever for all of time. And that's mostly where she wants to hang out. She is literally the princess and the pea. I swear to God. Whatever pile in the house has the most number of soft things on it is what she wants to be on. Like if you pile 2 blankets and then you pile up 5 blankets, she will always pick the one with 5 blankets. And I don't know why. I don't know. She just like always wants the high ground. I'm not sure what it is, but I find it to be very funny. And so her little dog bed in here is not sufficient. I honestly might just like replace the dog bed with a different pile of blankets on the floor. If that's what she really wants. She's an older lady. Oh my gosh, wait! Oh my gosh. Okay, it is Spoiler alert. I feel so bad. I forgot it's her birthday today. March 1st snuck up on me because I forgot that February is a short month. So I thought I had like another day or two and I forgot. So it is actually her 12th birthday today. Wow. We love we love a refined, dignified queen. I will now go obtain my dog. And I don't know. I do something for her birthday this weekend because she's a dog. She doesn't know what day her birthday is. But I was thinking this week about what I wanted to do for her birthday. Like, do I get her a rotisserie chicken and like do I make her a puppuccino? What do I do? I did not name her. She came with a name. I've only had her since she was like about 8 years old. I know she does have the high ground. I know. I will make sure she has the high ground. This is what I'm going to do. I want to go get my dog, and I'm going to bring her mountain of blankets so she can maintain the high ground and still be in here with me. So BRB. Haha. Oh, I told you. I knew. I made the pile of blankets for you. Oh, hi. Hi, baby. I made the pile of blankets for you. Come here. Come here, my birthday girl. Hi, my princess. Hi, my princess. Hi. And you were going right for that pile of blankets, huh? Yeah, you were. I brought it in here just for you, and then I added an extra pillow and an extra blanket because it's your birthday. You don't even know what her birthday is because you're a dog. She was doing her other favorite activity, which is sitting on the staircase, and she found we basically have a little window by the front door, and she likes to lay on one stair where she can stare out the front window, and she likes to watch little creatures outside and watch the people go by. And that's where she was hanging out. That's where you were hanging out, huh? Just like being by the window. What do you think, sweetie? Okay, I'm gonna let you go. Do you want more pets? You got lots of pets today, huh? Alright, here you go, sweetie. I hope she actually goes on the pile of blankets, but we'll see. Where are you gonna go? You wanna go be by the pile of blankets? Wanna go over here? That's not quite it. That's not quite it. That's not quite it. Closer. Which one's your favorite blanket? You're just looking at me. Let's see if she'll actually go over there. She's thinking about it. I don't have anything else for you, sweetie. Not right now. We'll see if she figures it out. She might just stare at me for a while. It's also something that she does. Okay, thank you for indulging in my dog-related needs. Oh, big smile. I'm gonna make that big pile and she's gonna just sleep directly in front of it. Amazing. Zoomed in floof, I guess. She'll probably end up over there at some point. But for now, we gotta clean the pauses. Okay, let's get to some questions. Ooh, I have my first long roleplay impact scene at a dungeon tonight in 2 hours. Ooh, good luck. Hopefully that is enjoyable. Can we please talk about Twilight? My roommate's joining. Yes. What about Twilight do you wish to discuss? I will say, here's my Twilight story for people who are interested. I discovered Twilight at a Scholastic book fair the year it was published. I think I was in middle school. Let's see, what year? That maybe would have been like 6th grade. Yeah, because the first one was 2005. Wow, it was like, I thought it was published like quite a bit later than that. But I guess it wasn't. That was probably in 6th grade, maybe 7th grade, is when I discovered that book. I'm not sure exactly though, because I'm not actually, I maybe didn't see it the year it came out, but I was definitely in middle school. And I remember buying the book, and like I was an avid reader growing up, and I still am, though I have like less time for it now than when I was younger. And I loved reading books, and Twilight definitely caught my eye because I was in that special phase of life that all girls have, where they think about homicide. Pardon the Addams Family reference. And I was really drawn to the cover because, especially I think compared to the graphic design of the time, it was so striking. It was a really long book. It's quite a large book, even in paperback form. And it just was, everything about it seemed interesting. And then like the back cover description of it being this, I actually do wonder what the back description of the book says, because I remember it being very enthralling. Let me see here. Yes, here we go. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him. I didn't know how potent that part might be that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. And I just remember being like so taken in by that and being like, oh my God. This, like, I wasn't even really here for the romance part, to be honest. I was just into it like for the like, because vampire novels like really, like, they weren't much of a thing like prior to Twilight. They'd had previous eras, but not not currently. It was very much the forerunner of a new era of vampire novels, and I really liked the idea of a vampire novel. I think maybe around this time I had read the actual book that has come to define me as a person, which is Blood and Chocolate. Without Blood and Chocolate, I would not be a member of the BDSM community. Of that, I am quite sure. But I got this book, and I remember my mom being very concerned about it, and I think she let me buy it. Um, and I think maybe, I don't know, maybe she like read about the author and like learned that Stephanie Meyer was like a Mormon like housewife basically, or like what. But she was very concerned about it. She thought it was like, she thought it was going to be a really dark book, and she was like scared of it. Like she was like, oh, like, I don't know if you should be reading this, honey. This seems really dark and scary. And I was like, no, Mom, it'll be fine. Like, the impression it left initially before anyone else had read it was that it was going to be this, like, really dark, like, messed up, like, fantasy, like, creature novel. And then it ended up being, like, you know, romance, which I find is quite funny. Yeah, I had not been exposed to Anne Rice at that point in my life. I think I read Blood and Chocolate like maybe a year or two after Twilight. Cause I remember it being on a library display at my school library back when like that was like a regular thing that we had school libraries. Wow, what a concept! What are you doing, dog? You're literally like on top of the camera. You're on. She's literally half sitting on the stand for the camera. Um, but yeah, I remember being part of a display of like other fantasy novels. I was really into Scott Westerfield. That was like my shit. Oh my god, I loved Scott Westerfield. But anyways, I got really into Twilight, and then I remember finding it again at a bookstore, and I think that was around when New Moon had come out, and I got really into it, and then I read that, and then I remember waiting for Eclipse to come out, and then waiting for Breaking Dawn to come out, and oh my gosh, I went to like the midnight book release. I went to this is the only, as far as I can remember, the only midnight book release I ever went to back when those were a thing was for Breaking Dawn. And that was the summer between 8th grade and ninth grade. I had moved across the country again, and I didn't have any friends and I was bored. And I remember being so excited to get Breaking Dawn. And then I remember reading it like the first couple of chapters, and I was so sad. And I didn't engage in any kind of like fandom for Twilight. I didn't like go on forums about it. I wasn't really aware that anyone else besides me like knew what Twilight was. Like, I had no idea. I remember when the movie started to come out, and I was in like ninth grade, maybe middle school too. I think the first one came out when I was either in eighth or ninth grade. When the book started to be turned into movies, I remember being shocked that it was like a phenomenon. Like other people knew what this weird book that my mom didn't want me to read was. So I was like, wait, other people like Twilight? Other people know what Twilight is? Like I was so shocked. I thought I was like this, like I was part of this like secret club, because like no one else bought it at the Scholastic Book Fair that I remember. It wasn't like flying off the shelves. It wasn't the most popular thing that was there by far. It was just, I guess maybe I was the wrong age demo for it if I was reading Twilight as an 11-year-old. But like, it is what it is. And I was so disappointed when I got a Breaking Dawn, because that is when it gets into the like, oh my god, she lost her virginity, and she's like gonna have this like crazy vampire baby, and like the sex is crazy, and then they have this big fight with these like Catholic Italian vampires. And I just remember thinking all of it was like so fucking stupid, and I was so upset. I was like, this is like a bad fan fiction. That was like distinctly, hey Dago, come here. You want to hang on to me, huh? This is my life. This is my life with my little bow. what you do. You like finger trap me like a little. Like, look, I can't get out. I'm stuck. You won't let me out. Alright. I can't reach you. You're too far away, little dog. You're too far away. She is very sweet. Anyways, I read Breaking Dawn and I remember being very disappointed by it as soon as it started being sexual. Because, like, being an asexual teenager and having, like, weird feelings going into puberty and, like, kind of being confused by sexuality, like, I really related to, like, the fact they didn't have sex. And I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God nothing's happened yet. And then it did, and it ruined it. And I was so upset about it. And then, like, everyone else liked Twilight when I went to high school. And I was like, wait, other people know what Twilight is? And then I thought about it more deeply because I was no longer an 11-year-old. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe this isn't, like, very good, actually. The end. I did go to, not opening night of Twilight, when it was released as a movie, but I definitely went like sometime around opening weekend, like sometime within like the week or two of it opening, and I went with my friends and I was like team Jacob because of course I am, and you know everyone else was like team Edward, and like it was a whole thing. It was a whole deal. I've always been a pretty doodly dude, but the Twilight movies have great scores and soundtracks. Yeah, they definitely put the budget into the music. And, like, honestly, like, the cinematography isn't bad. And, you know, especially these days, I think both, what is his, Pattinson? Robert Pattinson. Why am I'm like, that name sounds wrong to me? But his name is Robert Pattinson, yeah? It is. Okay. I don't know why that just, like, sounds, like, wrong when I say it like that. I feel like I normally hear people say, like, Patterson. Like, it's an ER as opposed to an IN. Maybe that's what's messing me up about it. And also Kristen Stewart, obviously, lesbian icon, apparently now, I guess? I don't know. Oh, thank you, Lexi. You're so welcome. I'm glad to hear that you and your partner are doing better. Yes, Paramore's Twilight songs do bang. And, I mean, they did make the baseball scene pretty fucking iconic. R-Pats. Yeah, we're just going to call them R-Pats for sure. Yeah, Cedric Diggory. Exactly. Yeah, Dakota's definitely like a top 10 Paramore song for sure. For sure. It's shot in British Columbia. It has to look good. It's just physics. Also accurate. You named my baby after the Loch Ness Monster? Face green, smiling. Exactly. Actually, I feel like I got pretty close to her delivery with that. It was pretty accurate. I remember her being like really pissed about that. Yeah. I stopped watching after I think I saw New Moon, and I've never seen Eclipse or either of the Breaking Dawn movies. I've never seen either one of those. Would that be like worth it to watch? Would that be like a fun experience to like re-experience the Twilight? It's not like quadrility, the quartet, which is really it would be a quintet, I suppose, of movies. That would be fun. Our Bass is in his house. Mm-hmm. Internet breakingly gay, Kristen Stewart. Yeah, when you realize that, like, maybe it would be funny if, like, the main characters were all just, like, different sexualities. But I don't know. It's interesting stuff. And then we got 50 Shades of Grey. So, you know, the world goes around, doesn't it? Just the bad lip readings. Oh my god, I haven't thought about those in forever. Yes, oh my god, I remember watching those, the bad lip readings. Anyways, that was like what defined my preteen years was Twilight. Not like, I wasn't like obsessed with the books. Like I said, I didn't really participate in the fandom of it, but I knew it. It was just that era was like my middle school, early high school years. And so for that reason, it was very definitive, like more so than, I mean, I guess maybe the ending of the Harry Potter books too. But as a teenage girl specifically, because I was kind of between, like, I was kind of a teenager and preteen between boy band eras, right? So it was like NSYNC was when I was like a little kid, and then like One Direction. By the time they came around, it was like super cringe to be into boy bands because that's like little kid stuff. So like I never, I think I've what is it? The That's What Makes You Beautiful. I definitely heard that on the radio, but I've never heard any other One Direction music besides that. So sort of a weird era for teen girl stuff and like what was popular. Mm-hmm. Read the books of the original story band 1 to 4. You will love it. I don't know what that means. The original story, is the story called band, or is it story band 1 and then there's story band 1, 2, 3, and 4? I refuse to watch Twilight until they introduce. No, I will. No, no Omegaverse. I'm so sorry. I can't, like. There's Omegaverse. Like, I just can't. I don't know if this is like something I need to work on resolving like therapeutically. But this is something I always really struggled with on DeviantArt and on Tumblr when I was on there when I was younger. Is like, I'm accepting of every kink intellectually. I can accept that there are people who enjoy the idea of like aliens and like uh Castiel from Supernatural becoming pregnant. Like, I understand there are people who like that. It is deeply repulsing to me. I can't, like, I can't even, like, I'm not even comfortable thinking about it. Like, I can't, it's like something about it just like, dude, like, I don't know why. I just am I'm like very put off by it. And like, it's obviously okay if other people are into that. I think if anyone was going to subject me to like an emotional sadomasochistic scene involving a movie, it would probably be the movie Junior. I refuse to watch that movie. I cannot even like watch the movie trailer for the movie. It is like that repulsive to me. And you know, that's how I'm problematic is I can't stand the thought of like that aspect of the Omegaverse, which is why I'm very glad that there is a Omegaverse that is not just, you know, dude on dude action. The end. Anyways, it's sort of interesting to like not be part of fandom for something. It's like, imagine you read Harry Potter, but then you like didn't know that anyone else knew what Harry Potter was. And then you found out later that everyone had very strong opinions about like shipping people. And you're like, what is that? No, it's just, you know, it's Harry and Ginny and, you know, Hermione and Ron. And like, that's what it is. Like, it's just the idea of like shipping other characters together. And like, that was never something that ever occurred in my head. I was just like, yep, that's the story. That's it. That was it. Oh, God. That was an era. It'll never be that way again. It'll never be that way again. Oh, with the streamer who came out today. Oh, well, congratulations to Finster. Congratulations, that is great. Are they going by a different name besides Finster now? Or are we still rocking with the Finster, but we're a she, her Finster now? Or just on HRT, or we're just experimenting with things? Interesting. Okay, well, listen, we always love it when people feel confident and comfortable in being who they really are. Love to see it. Ah, Finster is currently exploring their gender, but taking a feminizing dose of HRT they are AMAP. Ah, okay. Well, the more you know. Yes, exactly. The kink shaming is my kink. I don't remember that being specifically a Vine, but it is a joke that people make, so it's probably something that Vine started. That is true. Love buying impact toys at Tractor Supply. The riding crops are better quality and price than you will find at a kink store. I am very picky with crops. The only place I will get riding crops from is a UK based store called Jack's Floggers, and they make handmade, purpose made for kink riding crops. And they're like pretty cheap, even to get them to America. Let me see if I can like actually haven't bought from them in a while. I'm wondering what their prices are. It's like 20. It's like $20 USD for a crop, like a standard issue riding crop, and I love that. And
Nimrod donated $10. Oh. This is so awesome. Yeah, last week was to my first time at a play party and taster, but was cancelled for plumbing. Rescheduled for tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear it was rescheduled. Canceled for plumbing. You would be surprised how many BDSM parties are canceled because of like, oopsie, the fire extinguisher just like sprayed everywhere. Like our shower flooded. Like the upstairs neighbor in the unit above us had a malfunction with their like washing machine. A surprising number of HVAC and plumbing related incidents shut down BDSM parties. It's a very normal occurrence, but hopefully it'll be fixed soon, and that's like really frustrating. I'm curious, does kink/BDSM allow us to remember what it feels like to have fun and play? Like when we were kids and we had huge imaginations. That's what I'm noticing for myself, that kink equal play or fun. Yes, this is actually something that is, to a certain extent, maybe not like scientifically in like a neuroscience way, but in an anthropological, sociological sense. Yes, a lot of people experience kink as being something that is freeing to do because it allows you to play and explore in a way that is similar to what you may have experienced as a child, or if you didn't have that as a child because, you know, you were parentified or you had like an abusive childhood or something, you know, you had bad experiences, you couldn't experience that. You get to go back and have it for the first time. Like it's definitely a play space, which is why we call scenes, you know, a form of play, to be able to engage in roughhousing and fun consensually with another human being. And it's something that I've noticed, and I think it's why kink is something that helps people heal from so many different aspects. Is there was recently a study that came out where they basically ranked, I think it was a meta-analysis that was done on the effectiveness of different forms of treatment for depression, right? So like all the usual stuff, SSRIs, different types of therapy, meditation, yoga, you know, working out, so like weightlifting, cardio, dancing, etc. And dancing, and I didn't read the study in a lot of detail, so I'm paraphrasing here, but so forgive me. This is just what I remember of seeing this on Twitter and like briefly, you know, reading the pages I could find for free online. But dancing was by far and away like the thing that was the most helpful for reducing depression scores, which I found to be very interesting. And this is not to say that kink is therapy or that you should use, you know, kink as a replacement for therapy because, oh, well, it's probably better than, you know, talking to a therapist and having having like, you know, that other kind of CBT, for example. You know, don't you mix them together. Haha, very funny joke. These people, see, this is listen. I told you. She goes to the top of the mountain and she makes a fort on the top of Blanket Mountain. This is what she does. This is her doggy. I know it's your doggy life, huh? I gotta be careful. I can't talk about her directly because if I talk to her while she's making a bed, she will stop. And then she will not finish making the bed, and she'll come over to me, and I want her to settle and relax. So I'm not gonna say anything. But yes, that meta-analysis showed that dance was like a very effective treatment for reducing depression scores. And I think my off the wall theory is that I think dance is also, because it's hard to define what like play is or what a game is, but I think that dance in a lot of ways is also a form of play because it's like free body movement, it's expression, it's something where you can emote through the dance. And I think kink serves a very similar role where it's fun, it's expression, you can let out your emotions through it. And so I would argue that this is something that people get a similar benefit from with kink as well, along the same lines as they would get, you know, while dancing or doing other like maybe similar activities. Maybe like theater, for example, might be something else that's similar for people, or improv. You know, yeah. Look at you, my smiling girl. You have conquered the mountain. Look at you conquering the whole mountain, aren't you? Oh, I know. Here you go, settle in. All the light touches is hers. She is truly a dragon. She's a blanket dragon for sure. She's probably gonna like nom on some of the blanket and like push it around or like lick it. That's her other favorite thing to do when she's settled in, is she licks the blankets. Mm-hmm. The dance might work the same way as general physical activity. Well, that's it though, because dance actually scored way higher than cardio or weightlifting did, like by quite a bit in terms of how much it reduced depression scores. So I think that is where the play element comes in, because usually like cardio and weightlifting is it's more taxing and more discipline based, which I think some people are going to get like larger benefits from depending on their brain. But also I think that there's the freeness of it and the joy of dance. You know, speaking as somebody who enjoys dancing and didn't really discover that until their adult years. You know, I think that's an element that is shared with kink too. And I think, you know, people think of BDSM as being this very like dark, serious, you know, proper, you know, protocol, rigid rules, full of structure thing, which it can be, and it certainly is, and that can be part of the fun for people. Because, like, yeah, when you're a little kid, you might also like making games where you have a lot of rules, and you may change those rules on the fly to make sure that you win, or whatever outcome you want to have happens, right? Like when you're playing make-believe with family members, and you go, oh, no, wait, actually, you have to stand on one foot. No, wait, you have to wear the princess costume. It's like that, and we also do that in kink too, where the fun is also paired with rule making as an expression of the things that we enjoy. And with kink, there's the freedom aspect of it too that I talked about, where you can also have, you know, freedom of being able to let go and express and emote in a way that we're generally not allowed to do in everyday life, society, and relationships. Like where else in adult society are you allowed to openly cry at the top of your lungs, swear at someone, call them mean names, tease them, laugh in their face, you know, taunt them? Like, generally not. Like, you're not really supposed to do that basically ever. I can't think of a good example of like, well, there's a time where it's okay. Like, unless you're being paid by somebody to be mean to them, you can't really do that. It's not acceptable, and kink gives you a space to do those things that are more acceptable. Calvin Ball? Oh, is that like a Calvin and Hobbes thing? I like am vaguely aware of Calvin and Hobbes. I couldn't tell you if Calvin is the boy or the tiger. I think Calvin's the boy, but I'm not certain. I was more of I like Peanuts. That was the one I like to read. And I think it was Kathy. I think I liked Kathy. The one with the lady with the bob. That was the one I read when we had a newspaper. Actually managed to catch a live stream again, but I'm a bit late. Yeah, no worries. We're just having fun. Hanging out, celebrating my dog's 12th birthday. Look at her go. I made blueberry muffins today. I didn't even think about making her muffins. I'm gonna have to go to the grocery store after I go to the gym. That's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna go to the grocery store and go to the gym. And her favorite things on earth are steak, bacon, chicken, and cheese. So great for me, because none of those things are vegan. None of those words are in the Bible. Some of them are probably in the Bible, actually. Is the word egg in the Bible? Probably somewhere. Steak, maybe, not in that usage of the word steak. Chicken, possibly. A few weeks ago, I asked about E&M and told my partner. Had the conversation went so much better than I hoped. Yay! Tomorrow have a first date and my wife is totally okay and understood. That is amazing, Justice. I'm so excited for you and I hope that goes really well. And best of luck in your future adventures. Best of luck to you too, Bandita, making your little pillow blanket throne. I was really looking forward to going to a gallery opening tonight, but when I went to confirm the time, I saw it was yesterday. Oh no! Gosh heck, now I'm here. So, do you read comics? I grew up with like a weird amount of ignorance to very specific things. I didn't know that like Dungeons and Dragons was a game that people still played. I thought it was something that people did in like the 80s and like no one did it anymore. I didn't realize that D&D and like tabletop games were still played by people until I was in college. And I also thought comics were another thing that had completely died out. Like I was aware of manga and I read manga as like a teenager and a preteen, but I never got into comics. I think probably what was the first comic I ever read? Like Western, like traditional American like style comic. It probably would have been, I mean, I read stuff online. Like I read like Sunstone when it was being published on DeviantArt. So there's Sunstone, which I really need to get copies of because I'd really love to do a review of Sunstone and do like a book by book review of Sunstone. I think that would be really, really fun to do. And Death Sigil, which is made by the same person that made Sunstone. And that's probably it. Like, I don't have anything against comics. I just like anything that involves like 50 plus issues and never ends. Like also with anime and manga, I'm the same way. Like if something is like, oh, there's 50 issues and it still hasn't been finished, I'm like, fuck no, I am not reading that. Because I like having, especially for manga, I like having physical copies. And oh, maybe I should do a trip to Powell's. That would be fun. Should do that. I have so many books to read already though. I shouldn't do that, but I probably will anyway. The urge is mighty. I need to go to Powell's. But yeah, I haven't really read a lot of comics just because I just feel like, I don't know. I could have got into them when I was in college and I went to a card shop to play Pathfinder and D&D. And there were tons of comics there, lots of magic, like magic cards, not like pull a rabbit out of the hat, like, you know, the actual game. And I just never got into any of it. Never was my thing. Because I thought about it. I'm like, well, I don't want to read something that gets like rebooted 80 times. And like, I don't like things where the story goes on forever and forever. I like having a definitive ending. I'm not one of those people that gets upset when like you're playing like Mass Effect or Cyberpunk and like your main character that you've been playing dies. Like to me, it's like a satisfying conclusion to the story. Like, oh, okay, it's over, it's done. We had a fun time while it lasted, and it'll be fun seeing what the next protagonist is like. Like, I'm not bothered by that. I don't know, maybe that's just a unique thing that other people would normally be bothered by. But like, I'm okay with like more definitive endings to manga or video games or anything like that. There's a Pathfinder card game. The more you know. I think I got into, I mean, like I read like XKCD online. Like there was a couple of like those web comics I read, but not any sort of like printed traditional comics. I never kept up with any of them long term. Like there's people who probably still read a lot of those comics like every single time a new one comes out, and I'm just like, wow, imagine being that. Couldn't be me. Does she talk about vampires? Yes. A little bit. The part I read so far, the part I've watched so far has not really gone into like vampire lore, it tends to be more about fantasy and like romance novels, which I think is definitely an interesting angle, because the vampire angle is, I think maybe shouldn't go in that direction, because I think other people who have made video essays have talked about that, and so maybe it's for the sake of not repeating other people's points, which, you know, you don't want to step on people's toes, or especially in these days be even anywhere near accused of plagiarizing ideas from other creators. So I get that, but it's a little bit about vampires. But I enjoy that aspect of like, what is the vampire? Because I'm very much of the belief that, especially like Western vampire, maybe not romance fiction, but sort of earlier lore of vampires as a creature to fear in the night is, I think, related to a lot of very human and societal struggles. I think that's interesting to analyze that. The radfems do need to log off. That is definitely something we can agree on. Because, ooh, I'm performing a stereotypical feminine sex role due to my male socialized innate misogyny. Yeah, I know. Whatever, like, you can't win. You literally can't win. Like, if you do anything that involves penetration of any orifice ever, like, congrats, you're now heterosexual, and that's bad. Like, so, like, how do they propose that, like, gay men do anything? Because, like, even if you're doing a hand job, is that not in some way penetrating a hand and trying to replicate an orifice? Like, you can't do anything, you can't win. It's like, oh my god. Like, the problem, and this is something that Contrapoints like very succinctly says in the video, which is essentially, it maybe even slightly verbatim says, how does she say it? Like, the radfem perspective is to change society by changing individual sex instead of changing individual sex by changing society, which is like sort of the end point that I make in my video about CNC, though I take much longer to say it, which is more or less that like the radfem suggestion that we change things individually is always going to be flawed, because it doesn't matter. Like, you can make these thoughts, these fantasies, these acts even completely illegal, and it won't stop people from having them, nor will it stop the society from creating more people who have these desires. Because I think there are a degree of people that have fantasies around especially power and control because of the way the society is set up, and I do think that is a factor, but it is counterproductive to just shame people for having individual fantasies and condemn them for acting on it when it's the society, because that is what we live in, a society. For creating the conditions under which that fantasy becomes so commonplace as a way of coping with that reality. And so, you can't solve, it's the solving climate change by banning, plastic straws approach. It's like, are we doing something? I guess technically. We are doing a thing, but are we really doing something of meaning? I do love the Great British Bake Off. That is one of my favorite shows. That's like I kind of am grossed out by the idea of like, oh, you're my comfort YouTuber. This is my comfort YouTube channel. Like, I'm like, I don't know why that like weirds me out to it. Like, I feel maybe as a creator I feel weird about that, because like I don't want to be thought of as somebody's like emotional support blanket. Like, I don't know. That's not what I'm here for. And maybe that's wrong, and I should be more open to other things. But for now, I'm not into that idea. But I love Great British Bake Off. That is my comfort show, if there ever was one. She's very well camouflaged right now. You can barely tell that she's in there. I feel the same way about people having an inner monologue. That one I understand more, because I think it depends. Obviously, like, if you're born deaf, you're not really going to have an inner monologue. So you're going to, like, think more in pictures. So I do get the not having an inner monologue part, but, like, I do get it less if you're somebody who is not deaf or hard of hearing, I'm like, how do you not think about other people talking or sounds? Like that is a bit strange to me. Yeah. Twinkies were gone for a while. They changed the recipe. What? No. I don't know what goats eat either. Lemon party, never. Don't know what that is. Meat spin, nope. None of those words mean anything to me. Like, I feel like I'm just immune to like, so like the 2 girls 1 cup. Barely know what that is. Don't even know what happens. Don't want to know. I just I love the fact on some level that I can be a kink educator as my whole ass full-time job, and I don't know what any of these like apparently pivotal, like possibly made up things are that exist on the internet once upon a time. I don't like Peeps or Twinkies either. I think it's really difficult to be like, oh, well, this thing that's made by Americans is too sweet, so therefore all Americans need to be executed. It's like, that's like, I don't know, it's kind of just like such a Eurobrain take. Like, bitch, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I mean in the, like, talking to somebody vaguely that's, like, superior about, like, well, our food here is better because we don't have gross food like that. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I can't. There's a lot of like European, especially like British chocolate. Like, even before I was vegan, like I would still have milk. Like, I couldn't stand eating a lot of like very sweet like milk chocolate from the UK because I thought it was way too sweet. I also think UK water is too sweet, and I always have to add lemon to it. It's very soft water, and I find that to be disgusting. And apparently, no one has a problem with it. Also, everyone drinks sparkling water everywhere all the time. Like, what's wrong with still? Why is it all gotta be? Why you gotta have bubbly water? Why you gotta have bubble water? You know, like what's okay? Let's calm down. I've seen no evidence that any of those things I mentioned are real. They changed the ho ho recipe and they're terrible now. That is a crime. I really liked. That was like what we had in my family. My family didn't like buy stuff like that. We were very strict in our household about, well, I don't know. There's like, I shouldn't say that because I think people have different ideas of what strict means about stuff. But like my family didn't really buy like prepackaged sweets and things. We didn't have like little Debbie's and stuff like that. We would occasionally have ho-hos because my mom really liked them. So that was something we could like, you know, all have and enjoy occasionally. But we didn't really get into stuff. I remember going over to friends' houses and being like, oh my God, you have Oreos and Twinkies and like shortcake rolls and like zebra cakes. I don't even know what that thing is. And being like amazed and being like, wow, they have all this like crazy food that I've like, I don't even know what this stuff is. And I thought that was like mind blowing as a kid. I was like, what? I thought everyone else had like such cool food in their house. But I'm glad actually that I was not inundated with processed sugar all the time, constantly. My least favorite thing about moving to Germany from Britain, why is all the water sparkling? Yeah, I remember being in France and like having to specifically ask for like still water and lemon, and like I feel like I was just like the biggest inconvenience ever. It's like, oh, I can't. Like, I don't like anything carbonated. I just can't. And it's not good. Barbecue and mac and cheese. True. Like, I feel like you can't stereotype U.S. cuisine as being one thing because really it's like 20 different cuisines. Because we got like Cajun food, we got Creole food, we got like Tex-Mex, we got like New Mexican food, we got Cali Mex, we've got Detroit pizza. We've got whatever the hell's going on in Florida. I don't like we've got like the Mormons in Utah doing their own thing with jello molds that should never be replicated. We've got all the stuff going on in New York and New Jersey. You know, that's everything is all the different varieties of southern cooking. There's Appalachian food. There's like there's so much different stuff that it's really hard to, like, it's so different. Like if you're comparing, you know, fucking clam chowder to the Creole food, you're having a very different experience. So who has gone to a county fair and tried a deep fried Twinkie? It is outrageously delicious. I county fairs were kind of a thing. I feel like I lived in different places and everyone has different things. Like here where I live now, county fairs are a thing. But then when I was growing up, when I lived in the South, that wasn't really a thing at all. But then when I lived different places on like sort of the more northern part of the East Coast and then on the West Coast in sort of more remote areas, there would be like town days, like a town festival, like not a big county fair with like rides and stuff, but there would be like, you know, little shops and like homemade stuff, and there would be rides for the kids, but it would be like, you know, oh, there's like a train, and there'd be like little, like if there were carnival things, it would be little, or like the church would put on something, and like we didn't have full on county things. So when I was growing up, I don't remember any of the places I went to ever having like a deep fried thing stand. Maybe they did exist and I just like wasn't. Well, actually no, I do remember going by a place that had churros and funnel cakes, but not anything that was like outrageous and deep fried. I don't remember that being a thing. Yes, oh, Chicago for sure. Chicago deep dish pizza, yep. Fruit pies. I'm not a fan. I don't like hot. Okay, I enjoy cold, like Jello type fruit pies where it's got like a very very thick, I guess it'd be gelatinized. I don't know if is that actually the term. Like when you have something that has like a thick like fruit glaze in it, it's cold. I like that. I do not like, and I will cancel from this earth hot fruit pies. I don't know. I get that they with ice cream. I understand intellectually why they exist. I just don't think that fruit is meant to be hot when you consume it. that's just my brain is like, I mean, obviously really do whatever you want, and like if you like hot fruit pie, please eat hot fruit pie. But to me, in my controversial opinion, I do not enjoy eating hot fruit. Deep dish is a tomato casserole. Ooh, those sound like fighting words. Sweet potato pie, yep. Remember when there was a trend here for deep fried Mars bars and Bounty bars at fish and chip shops? Oh, I mean, they already got the fryers going, so why not? I think that makes sense. What is a deep fried stand? I feel like an Amish asking this question. Yeah, it's like an Amish person asking what goatse is. No, it is, I don't know if it's actually the term for them, but in my head that's what I call them. It's the stand or stands at like a county fair or a carnival where everything is deep fried, and like maybe they have like nachos or pretzels or something, but it's like funnel cakes, churros, deep fried Oreos, deep fried Twinkies, probably some deep fried meat on a stick type situation, corn dogs, deep fried hot dogs, like basically anything you can put in batter and then cook the shit out of it and then eat it, and then there you go. I do really like funnel cakes though. Those are legit. Are they made with pectin? I have not had to make a cold fruit pie in a long time, but yeah. I do make a lot of jam though. So what you're telling me is that a cold fruit pie is jam layered on top of a crust. It's basically jelly on a cracker. That is what I'm determining that a fruit pie is. It's jelly put on a cracker. I'm not Amish. I'm just from another country. No, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, yeah, we don't have like Christmas markets here, which I feel like is like, I'd way rather have a Christmas market than a county fair. If you told me pick county fair, Christmas market every time, 100%. Some of my upper Midwest homies might know. Yeah, because all the Scandinavians are in the Midwest. I've never had lutefisk before, but I'm aware of it. Deep fried pickles are pretty good. I really love pickles though. Funnel cakes, to be fair, I haven't had a funnel cake in probably like 10 years. So maybe I would think differently about them now, but whenever I get a pretzel or a funnel cake, I would always like tap off the excess like powdered sugar or the salt. Like if I ever get a pretzel, I hate the really big salt grains. So like I'll like scrape them off like this and then I'll eat the pretzel. Like when I was in college, I worked at a food place where we basically all had, it wasn't like a food cart area, but it was sort of like a similar idea, but with like restaurants in actual buildings. We had like a ton of restaurants all in basically like like a cul-de-sac close to a lot of the bars in the college town where I went to school. And I worked at one of them, and we all had this like secret underground trading scheme that we hid from our managers, where like all of the places that would get free food on shift would trade with each other. And like, oh, if you go here, this person, if you go to a place, the guy who works at the hot dog stand, he'll give you a free pretzel if you make him a sandwich. Or like, if you go to the ice cream place, you can get a free scoop of ice cream if you give him tacos. Like, and it was like a whole system. It was the barter system was alive and well. And whenever I would go to get a pretzel, I'd always ask them to make it without salt. And I don't know if anyone else ever requested that or if it was just me, but that was peak. Getting off a shift at like 4 a.m., 3 a.m., and have a little pretzel at the hot dog and pretzel place and enjoying that in my car before driving home. The end. I do not enjoy sweet pickles. Well, like, okay, if they're with something and it makes sense, maybe I would be okay with a pickle. I am a hardcore kosher dill, like hot and spicy. I will maybe have something if it's like a kosher dill, it's a little bit sweet. But if it's like, if it tastes sugary, that's not what I want in a pickle. I want a nice sour pickle, all right. But I also grew up drinking pickle juice, so, you know, drinking pickle juice to the kink educator pipeline. I don't know. It's probably not in any way correlated. I am talking about the power of bartering because I worked in what essentially amounted to like, it wasn't a food court, like it wasn't in a mall, but like, an area with a lot of restaurants in it, and we would all, as employees, trade with each other clandestinely. It was a little black market. It was definitely like, oh, we can invite the Jimmy John's peoples here because the manager isn't watching the camera right now because she went to bed. Like, it was definitely like, it was like that kind of a thing. The world is not my oyster, it is my Scrabble game. It's an interesting concept. I can see that. I called myself mommy to my boyfriend as a joke. You gotta be careful with that. That's the kind of joke that very quickly turns into not a joke anymore. It's a powerful weapon. You gotta be careful with that, alright? One day you're saying it as a joke, and then the next day you got somebody in a onesie, alright? It's powerful stuff. Gatekeeping is what makes a space safe and appropriate for the target group. Yes. Yeah, I think some people are very like puritanically against any form of gatekeeping, and I don't want to say that they mean it maliciously. Like they're just doing it because they want to have access to spaces and people for bad reasons. But I think there are some people who will very strongly argue, I need to be allowed here. And then you're like, well, why? And they're like, well, because I'm blah, blah, blah. And I just like deserve to be here. It's like, well, do you deserve to be here? And then if you try to tell them that they're not supposed to be there, they get really pissy about it. And they're like, so much for free speech. Like, they freak out about it. Like, so much for the tolerant left. This community used to be open for anyone and everyone, and now the SJWs have ruined it with their gatekeeping. Blah, blah, blah. And they all have, God, Jesus H. Christ. I have seen some arguments on the internet about this. It's very annoying. And it shows no signs of stopping. For some reason, when I used FetLife, it was men over 45. Nothing wrong with it, just not within my preferences. Asking me to be their sugar baby and 2 people my age, what I'm doing wrong. FetLife isn't a dating site. I don't really ever get any interaction on FetLife from people that I don't want to be talking to. So I feel like I've unlocked the secret. I think one is having an account that's like not brand new. So I kind of give it some time for the account to not be brand new and it'll cool off a little bit. 2, really look at the privacy settings. There are a ton of them these days. You can lock down who can see like your pictures. I think even now you can do it with like your fetishes and like limits and preferences. You can also make those private, and especially I really recommend restricting who can message you. It used to be anyone and everyone could message you, but now you can make it so that way only like friends can message you, or only people that you follow, or like no one at all. So definitely look at those settings and see if you can find anything there that will maybe make it harder for people that you don't know to just like randomly message you. Keeping pictures private, that's also a good idea. Just like keeping it locked down, basically. Not giving them anything to work with, I think is probably the best way to go. But it's difficult because, some people just don't know what the word no means. But it'll help it a little bit if you can make more things private, especially like the random messaging. Like one time I said, wouldn't it be funny if you eat on the floor? And it was 100% a joke. Yeah, that's how you end up eating on the floor. And very soon, it was not a joke anymore. Sometimes jokes are the truth that's been wrapped in a sugary coating. Yes, all are welcome is not the same thing as everyone belongs. Yes, that's a very, very wise distinction. Is aftercare for DOMs too? After a session, sometimes I think, how could I get off doing that to someone, even though at the start of the scene it was just a turn on? Maybe just the adrenaline ending. Yes, aftercare is for everyone. DOMs, tops, switches, bottoms, subs, pets, brats, whoever. Anyone who wants aftercare can have aftercare. Of course, you do need to talk about it first, because you can't expect that you're going to get aftercare if you don't say what your needs are, but you can always ask. And yes, I think aftercare is for everyone, because everyone, if they are being an active participant in a scene, can have, and maybe to a certain extent will have, an emotional response to what happens. And it's very, very normal, especially for newer DOMs and tops, and for male DOMs and tops especially, to have that sort of reaction of like, oh fuck, what am I into? Like, what does this say about me? I actually have a video that will be coming out. Oh, actually no. The video I just made, actually, the one that came out most recently about guilt and shame. If you haven't seen that yet, I really recommend you check it out, because I think it's going to be helpful for you. But guilt and shame, very common thing, and thankfully there are some relatively simple solutions for how to make that maybe not so intense. But yeah. Also, support from your partner, affirmation from your partner that you are a good person and worthy of care and affection and love and whatever else. Also good. Very, very, it would not be atypical as a dom or a top to request that your partner say nice things to you after a scene. Obviously, if they mean it. Like, if somebody has a bad time, you don't want to like coerce them into lying to you to be like, that was great, when it really wasn't. But hey, you're a good person, I still care about you, you're worthy, so on and so forth. I got punished for jokingly calling Daddy Champ. That sounds really funny, though. I hope it was worth it. It was an important lesson to not threaten him with a good time. Yeah, be careful when you joke around a dominant about, like, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? Because that just sounds like an idea. You've just added fuel to that fire, so be aware of what you're playing with. Mm-hmm. Bro, my brain was like Swiss cheese before BDSM. I do not think BDSM could have made it worse. Yeah, that is true. There's lots of neurospicy people, folks with processing issues, memory issues in the kink scene. Definitely. And a few people with TBIs as well. What constitutes a femboy? Oh, I don't know. Is it like actually like I don't know what the definition of a femboy actually is. I guess, okay, this is my gut instinct of, like, what I think a femboy is. And, like, please correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is a femboy is a younger person, usually, who identifies as a man and is a man. And they like dressing up and, like, looking feminine. Sometimes in a way to like confuse people and make people believe that they're a woman. And I think that's kind of basically it. I don't really know though beyond that. I'm not sure if that's like completely accurate, but that's my impression at least. Did anyone else have an issue not referring to their partner by their honorific in mixed company? It's so ingrained at this point. I'm just calling them by their name feels wrong. Yes, this is something that I went through with a previous partner that I always referred to by one title. I don't think I ever called them by the wrong, like the title or the wrong name in front of like family. I think I texted them and called them that name in a text message in like a group chat once. And I don't know how I played it off. Or like made it a joke contextually. But that's like the farthest thing I've ever actually gone with like messing it up for real. I have definitely had people that are my dominant partners refer to me by the wrong name around my family, like referring to me by like a title or something and calling me like pet or pup and like, oh god, don't call me that. And it's like, you know, just use my name please, because they're also very used to calling me by a certain affectionate title, and that's not very common terms of endearment in English to, you know, call your partner a pet. That's like not a thing that's done quite so much in the modern age. And I don't think anyone's really ever said anything about it. Thankfully, but it is something that can be quite sticky and hard to get rid of, which is like why now I'm not really looking for relationships that are as stringent on like always calling somebody by one name and one title, because I think it is really difficult if you want to have someone that's part of your vanilla life to like only ever refer to them as one name like 98% of the time, and then like 2% of the time you have to remember to call them by a name or title that you would like never ever use regularly in your interactions. I think it's also helpful if you can like drive to something together and you can be like, all right, so for the whole car ride we're gonna practice you calling me John and not sir. Okay, so we're gonna practice. We're just like John over and over and over and over and over again, and kind of like have more of a temporary period of like, all right, we're just gonna say it a lot so that way it sticks. Also, oh my god, my dog is being so snoogled. This is her life. This is what she does. She does this, and she looks out the window, and she goes after the squirrels. I am glad that you didn't have any slip-ups when being around your parents. Some Manosphere douche was telling me that I'll end up with a submissive femboy, and I thought, I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's kind of like a don't threaten me with a good time. Oh no, you're gonna tell me I'm gonna end up with a man that will clean my house and wash himself and be nice to me? Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. Like, yeah, I don't get what the problem is that. But what's the deal? What's the problem? There's a logical fallacy. She goes from particular points to universal conclusions. I'm not sure who we are referring to in this moment, but if we're talking about radfems, yes. That is just behavior conditioning, and none of that is permanent, isn't it? Yeah, from my understanding is a lot of the studies where people are like, oh my god, when you watch violent porn or you jerk off to something, it makes you like more favorable towards violence to women. And like almost all of those studies from what I know are like literally they test immediately after consuming something and not like a week later or a month later or 6 years later. And it turns out those effects are like not particularly durable from what I understand. Yes, the escalation argument is rarely something that holds water. I want a horror movie about that called Clown Lab. I mean, listen, they'll make anything into a horror movie these days. And if you have an idea that's vaguely unique, somebody will give you money for it. Mm-hmm. They think they need to get people to stop doing this cocaine, but way too many rich people do it. Yeah, that's never going to go away. I acted in a drug education video in 1999. I hope that no copies of it exist anymore because the cringe is too much. At least I got paid. Well, I know that when I was in driver's ed, they definitely had a video from like 1989 that they were still using. So I'm sorry to say there's probably a school somewhere that is still using that video from 1999 simply because they don't have any other resources and it's the only VHS tape that still works. They're like, but you won't have children and only cats. And I'm like, don't throw me the good time. Yeah, I find it to be very funny because it's like, do they not realize about like how children work and how that wouldn't be biologically possible regardless? But yeah, I know people are like, the only way that women are fulfilled is by marrying a man and having kids immediately and making him lunch with a little juice box in it and, making him wings during the football game. That is what a wife is. And like, they somehow think that like every woman by the time she gets to like older adulthood will suddenly be full of regret because, oh no, I should have had kids and I should have listened. When actual studies say that like most people stand by and are happy with their choice to either have kids or not have kids, regardless of what choice they make. As long as they were freely able to make that choice in the first place. A Manosphere dude once tried to insult me by saying that I'd be sitting alone on the couch with my cat in my own apartment watching Netflix, drinking wine, and eating cheese. What a nightmare. Well, I love how they're so specific. Like, they almost can't help themselves from, like, writing fucking fan fiction about, like, yeah, this fucking lady, she's gonna be in her apartment with her expensive furniture from West Elm, and she's gonna have the recliner up, but she's gonna be in little feety pajamas pajamas, and she's gonna have popcorn and wine, and she's gonna order a pizza, and she's gonna have cats, and she's gonna watch fucking like they just like explode. They just can't handle it. They just can't handle thinking about women. It makes them so angry. They just get so mad, and I just get help. Just get help. Jeez. They are really specific. Well, I think they're not original. I think they probably just repeat whatever their thought leader daddy tells them, like women do. Like, all these women, they say that they're going to be happy living alone, but actually women, when they get older, they're always miserable, and they're always going to regret spending their time on their weekends eating bonbons in a robe, watching Lifetime movies instead of finding a real husband. Like, that's what they think. Eating cheese, could he have chosen a more normal food? Yeah, I know. It's like wine and cheese and crackers. Ugh. Like, they just can't. They can't handle it. Fresh and Fit Guy says that women are only valuable when they are able to have kids, which is crazy because I know they don't want to have kids with like any of the women they're having sex with. So what are they doing with their life? I feel that being bothered by LGBT stuff is extremely unemployed behavior. Like, don't you have anything else to worry about? I'm kind of jealous. I know, right? Like, you have to have a lot of free time to be like, what the problem in society is? Women that don't want to date me personally because they're a lesbian. Like, calm down. He did write a book called Why Women Deserve Less. And it's like, maybe you deserve less. Any man who thinks the proper way to deadlift is to do like fucking 5 sets of 20 reps needs to like fucking go home. What are you doing, my dude? I deadlift more than you do. What? Oh my god. I just imagine you're so proud of being an alpha male, but then like you don't know how to achieve the most basic form of hypertrophy, which is maybe the reason why he's been working out for 10 years and like doesn't have any muscle mass whatsoever. There could be an explanation there. I am saying that alpha males think that there's a problem with snacks in Lifetime movies because it's the sin of a debaucherous, unmarried woman who doesn't have an interest in men. Have you seen the Sigma male custody guy? He's definitely not getting his kids back. I don't know who that is, but that would not be surprising. Has Myron ever had a successful romantic relationship? I don't know. When you look at a lot of them, Steven Crowder, divorced. Just pearly things. Dated one guy ever. Didn't really work out. Andrew Tate is probably the most successful romantically out of any of the alpha male guys. Matt Walsh only ever talked to one woman, his wife. Poor her. I hope that he's nice to you and isn't a douchebag all the time like he is on camera. And then Myron and I forget the other guy's name. I gotta be honest, I refer to him in my head as Coconuts in Barbados. That is how I refer to him. I just call him Coconuts. I don't know what else he's called. I don't know what his actual name is. I'm gonna Google Myron Gaines married a woman. I want to say at least one of them is married. Myron Gaines is a single guy despite being in his mid-30s. Oof. I learned recently while reading more Manosphere content, which I don't recommend, by the way, that there's also a wall for men. It's much further back in age range than for women, but there is a wall. Like, no one wants to be having kids with a man who's in his, like, mid-40s, generally speaking. Like, I mean, unless you're really wealthy, I guess. Like, most people aren't like, I want to have kids with a man who's like 47, like the first time having one kid. That's not generally what people are looking for. So, maybe you shouldn't be on the couch watching football, eating wings with the boys. Maybe you should be looking for a woman. In addition, he does not have any romantic relationships and is single. Interesting. Apparently, okay, this is nuts. Okay, I don't know if this is like true. This seems like it's from Destiny's community, so like grain of salt there. He claimed he'll go to the Middle East to find a virgin bride, which is funny because he wants a virgin bride, but he has no problem at all contributing to the no virgins problem himself personally. Like, damn, what are you doing, bro? Like this, he, the people over there value their religion the most. They'll want a good religious Muslim son-in-law. Someone like the Golden Balance YouTuber, Myron claimed he'll be religious once he gets married, but for the Muslim culture, promiscuity is all the same. It's all a really big sin, and basically, he's. So I guess is Myron? Does he come from like a Muslim background? And he's like just non-practicing, and like he's like, oh, I'll be religious again. That's not how that works. You can't just like. I mean, if you are serious about religion and think that God's real, you don't just get to turn that on and off when it's most convenient for you. Like imagine only like becoming religious after you get married, but then like it's like God. Everything is projection. Every single goddamn thing is projection. Every single time. You think, oh, they don't like women because women sleep around and have too much fun when they're young, and they don't get serious about having a family until they've worn themselves out. And it's like, is that because that's what you're doing? Is that because you think that's the only point to existence, my man? He also does, in fact, have divorces. That is true. I actively try to learn as little about Destiny as possible. I have to be honest. I try not to engage with political streaming culture because it is annoying and dumb. The ends. That's it. That's just all it is. I know, he is very unemployed to be worrying about things like, well, she slept with 3 men, so I can't marry her. Duds, all duds, just trying to pretend like they have value. Listen, they are pretending to have value. They are grifting not just their ideas, but also projecting a sense of value that they in fact do not actually possess. True. Maybe older women are miserable because guys keep talking about them like they're a negative concept instead of a complex individual, not because they're child free. Yeah, exactly. Women are miserable when they're like 40 because, well, not all women, obviously, but like women that are the age that are, they're like, I only want to date, younger women because like older women are like bitter and jaded. And it's like, your treatment of women is causing that, you dumbass. Like, you go through 20 years of men catcalling you, mistreating you, using you for sex, not caring about your consent, putting revenge porn on the internet about you, whatever horrible thing, stalking you, calling you the crazy one, whatever thing happened to you. You're like, yeah, I'm done, logging off, goodbye, I don't want to interact with men, it's bad. It's like, God, I wonder how that happened. I remember hearing about a celebrity that planned to convert to Judaism after getting married. Like, what is your relationship to reality? I mean, yeah, because like converting to Judaism is like a lot of work. Like, that's not just like, my understanding for Islam and also for like pretty much every denomination of Christianity is like conversion is like pretty fucking easy. Like, you don't really have to actively try. It just happens. You say some words and you make some promises and then there you go. Congrats. Done. Okay, last question today from Kevin. I, new to the scene, had a first date with someone who was a little. We ended up cuddling. I may have gotten a bit too touchy-feely. We discussed I crossed boundaries. Any tips for next time? Whenever you have a boundary transgression, which it sounds like you did have, I believe in coming up with a very concrete plan to make sure that does not happen again. So, okay, I transgressed boundaries. If you decide you still want to play with me, like this is sort of, here's like the rough outline of like what I would think to do if you're going to have a conversation about this is talk about what happened as like factually as possible. Own up to what you did as concretely and directly as possible. Recognize the damage and hurt that would have caused. Don't overly dwell on your own emotional experience, but talk about what you're going to do as an accountable action plan for making sure that doesn't happen again. And when you get to that stage, you'd say something like, I want to make sure that I don't cross that boundary again. So until you feel comfortable, instead of cuddling for aftercare, I propose that we do this other like non-physical thing instead. Or, you know, you have a friend come and cuddle you. Or we have a stuffy that we can put in the microwave and warm up for you and you can like cuddle that. And just generally in kink and in life, before you do any kind of new touch on a person, be that, okay, well, you know, I touched your boob during a scene, but that was because I was twisting it and causing pain, which is a very different context than touching a boob romantically and softly grazing it and like playing with the nipple. So like it's not just, well, I touched your boob that place, so it's fine now. Like whenever you're in a new situation, new person, new activity, stop, check in, ask very directly. And even then, if you are in aftercare, assume that if you have not talked about boundaries there before, that you have very high boundaries and should only ever do what is, previously considered to be acceptable based on your other negotiations. Because people in aftercare time can be more liable to agree to things that maybe they shouldn't. How many times would you let someone cross boundaries before you call it quits with the offending partner? It depends on how much scene experience they have. Like, if they're, like, new to kink, as long as they're not repeating the same thing repeatedly, like, if it's, like, kind of new things because they're figuring things out, I'd be, like, maybe 3 times. With a new partner, it's twice, and if you repeat the same mistake multiple times, my trust in you is damaged, and I will not be able to trust you in that area again. I think the thing I see that people do that they have a lot of problems with is they will make a mistake, they'll apologize, they don't come up with a plan for how to prevent the behavior from happening again in the future. They just pinky promise, I'll never ever do it again, I swear. And then like a couple months later, same behavior happens again, they apologize, and maybe this time they make a plan, but they don't stick to it. That damages trust even more, and it just is like a spiral of that. So if you're like repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again, where it's like, hey, you know that I don't like, it's kind of going back to the previous example, I guess, I don't like having my nipples touched, but you keep touching them even though I keep telling you not to, like, I can't play with you anymore, or I'm only going to play with a bra on, or I'm only going to do whatever. Especially these days, I probably wouldn't even go that far, especially with like a new play partner. If I was in a romantic relationship with somebody and we were exploring kink and they had some oopsies, I would give much more leeway, where if I get a bad vibe from somebody in a first time scene or the first couple of scenes and they clearly do not respect my consent and don't give a heartfelt apology to what they did, I just like don't play with that person again, because like I have options and I don't need to settle for something that I don't need to tolerate. Definitely repeating things is, I think, the issue. Because, like, everyone makes mistakes. And I'm not saying that as, like, a panacea to, like, forgive anyone for anything. But, people do mess up, right? People forget stuff. They misremember agreements. They maybe don't hear something because the music is too loud. I get it. I understand. How you respond to being informed that something went wrong is very telling. The bed camera is my dog sleeping on a mountain of blankets because that's her favorite thing and it's her birthday. Sounds reasonable. I like that. This is much how I dealt with people I was training professionally. Yeah, like you get warnings. We have a plan for action, plan for improvement. If you can't stick to the improvement plan and reach your milestones, we're going to have further issues. Because that to me says that you're not actually really serious. And if you don't take this seriously, like how am I going to trust you doing anything else? Yeah. All right, doggo. Hi, my sleepy girl. Oh, her little tongue is sticking out. It's so cute. Here, I'll move the camera so you can see. Oh, or maybe, I don't know if the cord will stretch that far, but. Look at her little face. Look at that little face. My goodness. All right, that's it. That's the Bandita birthday stream. She is the quintessential element of peace. I'm gonna go. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me on this Friday night. No updates right now. No big things coming up. Oh, I got a super chat. I'll just answer this one real quickly. Hey Evie, still new to kink. Do you have any videos on scene ideas? Yes. If you search my channel for scene ideas or go to my general BDSM playlist, it will be in there. I probably like at least 4 or 5 videos with scene ideas. Different themed ones for different times of year, different like roleplay concepts, but I have a couple, yeah. All right. Good night, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Have a safe